everyone has their story. Everything has that thing inside them that makes them special, and that they are not defined by one element.
Matthew, thank you so much for the time to chat. It is a genuine honor and pleasure. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, this is the best film of the year. Uh,
Oh, oh.
I really am deeply touched by it, and I think it's just an incredible piece. How did you get involved? What excited you to be a part of it?
Yeah, a random thing happened. This executive producer of the film was a guy named Alon Gale. We met at like James Gunn's wedding. And we hit it off, and he called me up one day and he's like, "Hey, let's go grab lunch. Mike Flanagan wants to meet you." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." I didn't know Flanagan at the time. I didn't know his work. I'm not a huge horror. I mean, people assume I am, but I'm not a huge horror guy. And so, anyway, long story short, we had this lunch, and most lunches in Hollywood last, a half hour with a cup of coffee. And we sat there for 3 hours, completely engrossed in conversation about everything other than Hollywood, talking about D&D and, I've started a whiskey company and all this stuff. And so long story short, we got along famously. And at the end of it, he's like, "I'm going to call you. We're going to work together someday." And I was like, "Well, you know, I hope that's true. But, the amount of sort of like times I've heard that in my life, I'll believe it when I see it." And I said, "But if you call, I will come running. It doesn't matter." And so, like a year, 6, 8 months later, he called me up and said, "I want you to consider this part." And I was like, "I'm in." He's like, "It's a small part." I'm like, "I'm in." He's like, "You should read it." I'm like, "Fine, I'll read it, but I'm in." He's like, "There's no money." I'm like, "I don't care. I'm in." And I just jumped at it because I was like, I want to go be in his world. I got a kick out of him. And I started watching his work. I thought Midnight Mass was incredible. And so, anyways, long story, way too long. Sorry. I said yes to the film, and I'm lucky to have a part in it.
Well, it's such a special piece, and I think, one of the things that makes it so fascinating is the name Stephen King.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not much of a horror guy. I think it's actually kind of funny that you say that because of how many projects you've been involved in. But Stephen King is known for horror, and yet some of his most popular films have not been. Of course, Shawshank is with his name as well. And I was wondering for you, what do you think Stephen King brings to a story when it doesn't have to be scary?
Yeah, Stand By Me is another one of those that stands out for him. The reality is that we contain multitudes. Like, I think as a creative artist, you're like, yeah, I can do comedy. Yes, I can do horror, but I can do both, right? And you're not just one or the other. Same thing with Stephen King or Mike Flanagan. They are storytellers. It doesn't matter the genre, they're going to be great at it. I mean, The Longest Walk or The Long Walk is his new movie that's coming out.
Yep.
It's not necessarily a horror film. But they're great storytellers. And at the end of the day, mainstream media has a penchant to categorize you, to easily sell you or easily sell something. And the reality is that, here's an opportunity for these two men, these two incredible artists who are accomplished beyond their wildest dreams, getting a chance to do something outside of the norm. And that's why the movie is made for a shoestring budget. It's a very tiny film. That it just so happens to have caught fire at the right time.
That's wild to me because the film looks great. It's got an incredible cast. So to think, oh, it's a shoestring budget, but it's just such a beautiful character piece from start to finish, or if you will, from finish to start.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm glad that you said it because one of the key things about this film is I contain multitudes. And I would love to hear from your perspective what that means to you because that's such a key theme in this film.
Oh yeah. That all of us, whether you're Gus working the lines or you're Tom Cruise, it doesn't matter. Everyone has their story. Everything has that thing inside them that makes them special, and that they are not defined by one element,
Mm.
right? It's a beautiful sentiment, especially in this moment now where I think the internet makes you feel lost at times. I think it makes you feel like you're floating. And the reality is that, there's so much beauty in you. It doesn't matter sort of who you are or what you're doing in that moment in terms of your journey, right? That you are, yeah, that you are whatever you want to be.
I love that. And one of the things about Chuck's journey too, you say you are who you want to be. They keep talking about art in different ways. It could be math, apparently. Math can be art, but it never lies. Dance. And I wondered if you think, is there an art to life?
Oh God, that's a question. Yeah, I think so. I mean, without a doubt, there is an art to life. I think, whether you're, a Parisian art from the hills of Tennessee, I do think that there's a quality of life that lives in the in-between times, right? It's gathering as a family. I mean, I grew up in Detroit, right? So it's gathering as a family at the lake and having barbecues. It's as an actor in my house, like gathering artists to read plays, right? It's for my kids. It's like them being at that same table. Um, I think that to me, is there is there like a secret to life? To me, it's the gathering of fellowship, is being surrounded by people that share the same elements of joy, whether that's a Dungeons and Dragons table, whether that's on a soccer pitch, right? I think to me, that's the linchpin, like that's the thing that sort of defines it for me. But again, that's going to be defined by everyone in their own demographic in their own part of the world. But I would argue that it's the collection of people that you love and want to be surrounded by.
That's interesting that you say that too, because that's so much of this film. Without giving spoilers away, so much of Chuck is the summation of his relationships.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I think that's really powerful, and I think that's one of the things I connected so deeply with about this film is just how every piece matters in such an incredible way. And I know we're starting to run out of time though, Matthew. Honestly, I could talk about this film with you forever. What is it that you hope people take away from the life of Chuck?
Yeah, I mean, my hope is that look, if you see this interview and we're talking, that we spark a charm in you, that you find yourself in a movie theater surrounded by other people in the dark and let the movie wash over you. It's not for me to say what people feel, but I hate the idea, like everyone keeps saying, oh, you're gonna cry. Like that's just a sales technique. They're just trying to get people in the audience. The reality is that I do think that people, when they see this movie, have an experience, and I'm not the one to tell you what that's going to be or how it's going to hit you. But the reality is that there's like, I think that we have these movies like Maverick and you feel something, and you have horror movies and you feel something. But I do think that there's like every now and then you get a film that comes along that ascends to a piece of art that when you sit in the theater you have these like beautiful, you have like an experience. And so I think it's unlike anything else you've ever seen, this film, in terms of how the movie's made. And I think that sort of maybe the change of that tempo or the architecture of the film allows it to hit differently. So I'm not going to tell you what I hope you have, but my hope is that the charm in you follows your instinct into the theater.
We say I contain multitudes. I think you can have a multitude of experiences with this film. So
Yes, for sure.
honestly, thank you so much, Matthew, for the
Yeah,
time.
it's
Really
huge, man.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you. Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Yeah, I like all of your pop references back
Thank
there.
you. Yes, my wall of madness. Thank you.
I like it. Abominable Snowman, and it's good.
Yeah.
What's the pop? Who's the pop?
Which pop? Which one?
On the bottom.
Down here? I got
No,
Roger Rabbit.
up one. Up.
Scar.
Scar.
Scar. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.